All right, so the first thing we're going to do with this problem is realize what numbers we cannot divide by. So we can't divide by 0. So anytime any of these variables are equal to 0, you would not be able to include those as an answer. So I'm going to write b is not equal to 0, just as kind of a reminder later on, just in case the answer is 0, I'm going to need to know that I can't use that. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is multiply every single one of these by b squared. And the reason I'm using b squared is because that's all-encompassing in terms of factors. So it includes 2 of the b factors. So I'm going to multiply both sides by that. And it's going to get rid of everything in the denominator, essentially. So we're going to distribute this b squared to this first one right here, and you'll get b squared minus b minus 6 minus, okay, the b squared and the b are going to cancel, but you'll still have one b left, so it's going to be minus b times 2b plus 12. Okay, and then from here, this b is going to cancel out with this b here, and you're going to be left with b times b minus 39 all over 2. From here, I'm going to distribute everything out. Actually, from here, I also should have multiplied by 2. It would have got rid of this fraction, which would have made my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 over here as well. So that means this is going to be 2b squared minus 2b. This will be 12. This is going to have a 2 in front of it, and this is going to technically be gone. Okay, now from here, I'm going to simplify everything. So we have 2b squared minus 2b minus 12 minus 4b squared minus 24b is equal to b squared minus 39b. Okay, from here I'm going to combine like terms. So we have the 2b squared and the 4b minus 4b squared, so that's negative 2b squared here. The next thing is going to be the negative 2b minus 24b is negative 26b, and then minus a 12 right here. Okay, from here I'm going to add 2b squared to both sides, and you're going to be left with 3b squared over here. Okay, and then I'm going to add 26b to both sides, so you'll have negative 13b right here, and then I'm going to add 12 to both sides, so you'll have a 12 right there. This is going to all be equal to 0, and then you can use quadratic formula, or you can factor it out if you want to solve this. So if you factor all this out, you're going to end up with x minus 3 times the quantity 3x minus 4. And then if we solve this, you're going to have 2 answers. You'll have x equals 3 and x equals 4/3. Now, neither of those are actually part of the possible excluded values here, so these are going to be the 2 solutions for this equation. All right, so here is another rational equation that we're going to be solving. First thing that I want you to notice here, well, first thing we should do is find the possible excluded values. So h cannot be equal to negative 3 or 2, because if it was, then we would be dividing by 0. And then from there, what I'm going to do is actually combine, I'm going to combine these 2 fractions here because they have the same denominator. So it's going to be h plus 10, because the 6 and the 4 are going to make 10, divided by h minus 2, all divided by 1 over h plus 3. I'm going to multiply both sides by the denominators, so that way it gets rid of all fractions, so it's easier to solve. Okay, from here, that's going to cancel. This is going to cancel. And you're going to be left with h minus 2 is equal to h plus 10 times h plus 3. Okay, hopefully you see here that this is actually a quadratic, and in order to solve this, we are going to have to expand everything out and then set it equal to 0. You can use quadratic formula, or you can factor it as well, but I'm going to expand it out real quick. Okay, from here you could factor it if you wanted. Remember, you're finding 2 factors that multiply to get 32, and those same 2 numbers add to get 12, so it's going to be h plus 8 and h plus 4. Okay, so our 2 answers for this would be h is equal to negative 8 and h is equal to negative 4. Now, neither of those are part of that division by 0, so we don't need to worry about that, and these are our 2 answers. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the possible excluded values just by looking at this. One of them we would have m is equal to negative 1. Another one we would have 0. And to just confirm this, I'm going to factor everything here. So we're going to have m plus 5 over m squared. I'm going to factor out an m there, so this will be m plus 1 is equal to 1 over m times m plus 1 minus m minus 6 all over m plus 1. Now, to get rid of all the denominators, we're going to have to multiply both sides by m and m plus 1. So that's what I'm going to do now. So these are going to cancel here, and you're going to be left with m plus 5. And then when we distribute this to this first one, you're going to be left with 1. When you distribute it to this one right here, you're going to be left with m minus 6 times m. Okay, hopefully you see here that this is a quadratic equation, so we can use quadratic formula to solve, or we can factor it as well. So the next step here is I'm going to notice that if you distribute this here, you end up with a quadratic equation. So that means we're going to want to set this equal to 0 so that we can solve. So what I'm going to do is add this whole thing right here over to the other side. So I'm going to add that to both sides and then subtract 1 as well, so then it's equal to 0. So you should end up with the following. Then I'm going to expand this out really quick. So you get m squared minus 6m minus, or this is going to be plus m plus 4 is equal to 0. So you can rewrite this to be m squared minus 5m plus 4 is equal to 0. From here we can factor this. You should get m minus 4 and m minus 1 set equal to 0. So your two solutions would be m equals 4 and m equals 1. And neither of those are possible excluded values, so those are going to be the solutions for this one. All right, this next one is pretty involved, and you can't right away see what would cause this to be a division by 0 with the value for x. So what we're going to do is I'm going to factor everything first, essentially. So I'm going to do 3x over, this is going to be x plus 2 and x plus 3, plus 2 over, and this is going to be x plus 2 and x minus 1. And this is going to be equal to 5x over x plus 3 and x minus 1. Okay. So now you can see which ones would cause a division by 0. So I'm going to write those values over here. X cannot be equal to -2, -3, 1, and that's it. So those three values right there it cannot be equal to. And again, I based it off of all of these denominators here. What would cause a division by 0? All right, from here, I'm going to multiply both sides by all of the denominators. Okay, so we're going to be multiplying it by x plus 3, x minus 1, and x plus 2. Okay, both sides are going to be multiplied by the same thing here, so I have to do it for this side as well. And all of that is multiplied there. Okay, so this first one, you're going to be left with 3x times x minus 1. So that if I distribute here, that's what you end up getting. And if you distribute to the other one, you're going to end up with 2 times x plus 3. And that's going to be equal to, okay, over here, this and this are going to cancel here. So you're going to be left with 5x times x plus 2. Okay, so we have a quadratic equation here because you can see it's an x times x, and an x times x here, so you know it's going to be quadratic. So that means we're going to expand everything out and then set it equal to 0. So that's what I'm going to do real quick. All right, from here I'm going to factor this, and you're going to end up with 2x minus 1, x plus 6. It is worth noting that you could, if you wanted to, use quadratic formula there as well. I just decided to factor it. And you're going to be left with x equals 1/2 and x equals -6. And none of those are excluded values, so that's our solutions for this one. All right, for this one, first thing I'm going to do is realize that x cannot be equal to -3 and x cannot be equal to 1 because it would cause a division by 0 here, here, and even here as well. So what we're going to do next is factor everything. So we're going to have 4x minus 1 over x plus 3 plus 5x minus 3 over x minus 1 is equal to 8x squared over x plus 3 times x minus 1. Okay, from here I'm going to multiply both sides by x plus 3 and x minus 1. Okay, it's going to cancel out here on the right side, so you're going to have 8x squared there. Here I'm going to distribute to this first one, so you're going to be left with 4x minus 1 times x minus 1. Distribute to the other one, and you're going to be left with 5x minus 3 times x plus 3. Okay, we have a quadratic equation here, so we're going to expand everything out and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to do that real quick. You end up with something like that. I'm going to subtract off that 8x squared from both sides, and you're going to be left with x squared plus 7x minus 8 is equal to 0. Okay, I'm going to factor this here, and you will get x minus 1 and x plus 8 is equal to 0, which means x is equal to 1 and negative 8. But if you recall, 1 is actually one of the possible excluded values there, so you cannot include that as one of the answers. So the only answer for this one would be negative 8.